I thought it was not going to get any closer than what we had starting this day, but it does, apparently, because we have 5 different contenders now to potentially book a ticket, hotel, and everything there is, and potentially a chance at over $100,000 at the IESF World Championship, and most importantly, a chance of representing your nation, your country, at the very high stake of PUBG Mobile Esports. So do be interested in the next 3 games. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go into the next one, we do have to give you an update on the overall leaderboards. Let's take a look at these teams, right? We have Bahrain, we have Kazakhstan, we have Mongolia, we have Jordan, and we have Palestine, as well as Uzbekistan. Maybe even 6 different potential contenders for these top spots, but only one has secured that ticket so far, and that is most likely Bahrain, who is sitting at the very top of the leaderboard. Any upsets that are to be coming our way, Kovo? Any ideas? Any predictions?
It's getting hard, man. It's getting tricky. The games are becoming more and more crazy, right? We have more and more teams that are just going all out, like Lebanon did last game. We have more and more teams who can't seem to get anything going. We have a Mongolia that was crazy consistent on day one, who came into day one just looking at that leaderboard in 2nd place, right? And now they've been passed by Kazakhstan, who had 17 points to catch up. So really not what we were expecting coming into the day. And I'd say the big upset so far for me is definitely 100% Mongolia, right? They came in 1 point behind, and now they're looking so flat and so unsuccessful in pretty much everything they do.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Let's take a look at these overall standings really quickly. Post-match 9, Bahrain, as we said, 107 total points. 83 on Kazakhstan, 78 on Mongolia, and 71 on Jordan. Jordan, who was 3rd before, Mongolia 2nd before, and Kazakhstan, I believe, was 4th when the day started. So all of these teams have been scrambled, except for Bahrain. We've talked about this. And there goes Uzbekistan as well. What do you think Uzbekistan needs to do now these next 3 games? Do you think maybe just upping the risk, like Lebanon, like the rest of the teams that are in contention, maybe that's going to fix it? Is that going to be enough for Uzbekistan, taking more fights, more risky rotations?
I think doing the same as what they have been doing is pretty much the recipe to success for them, but it's pretty hard to pull off consistently, right? They are losing members every now and then because they go so aggressive. They go so aggressive early when they can. They love taking their fights. They love punishing teams, and I think that's what's been working out for them, and that's what separates them from some of the teams that have fallen flat today. But if they were just beating Mongolia, I'd say that could be enough. But they have to beat Kazakhstan as well, and Kazakhstan looks so much better right now, way more scrappy, way more successful in their fights. So they have to pull something out of the hat here with Uzbekistan. They have to pick up the magic rabbit to really just try and close that gap, because, again, catching Mongolia seems super doable, but they really have to kick it off if they want to compete with Kazakhstan here.
Yeah. Mongolia also, just thinking about the way they had to, like the pathing to even get to this qualifier, right? They had to win the PUBG Mobile National Masters, for which was organized by the Mongolian Esports Association. They had to win this against plenty of other strong teams. Like, Mongolia is a nasty region. They have so many good teams. And, only the top 1 was in this. I do believe it was a best of 18, if I remember correctly. So a best of 18 or a best of 16. Only the top 1 team was going to advance to the IESF qualifiers. And they made it, as IHC Esports. They made it to officially represent Mongolia here at the IESF World Esports Championship. And for them to potentially now, for the first time, be out of a qualification spot, that was such a good start, would be heartbreaking for them. So, I mean, we got to take a specific look at Mongolia as well. Can they handle the pressure now that they have, being the runner-ups for the first time?
Yeah, it's rough. They started the tournament with 18 points per game in the first 2. That's mental, right? That instantly bombards you up there. It makes you really hard to catch, and they kept playing the same game all day yesterday, or the day before yesterday. Yeah. We highlighted them for never finishing outside of the top 4, and right now today, it feels like they've barely gotten into the top 4. It feels like there's only 9 teams in the lobby, and they're still just barely grabbing a few placement points here or there. They had a reasonable game 2 where they just overstepped a bit in the fight in the apartment. But other than that, they've really just not shown it at all today, and that's hard to come back from. That's hard on the mental. That's hard to convince yourself, okay, what we're doing is the right thing, right? Because sometimes you might be having the right approach, it's just not working out. So tough times for Mongolia right now. Mentally, much easier for a team like Kazakhstan or even a team like Uzbekistan, who's just really hot on the heels right now. But you have to believe that they still got it. These players, right, on that Mongolian squad have the caliber absolutely needed to make it to the World Esports Championship. So we just have to wonder, where is it? Why are they not bringing it right now? And it's a hard question to answer, really.
Yeah, I guess the same could be said about Kazakhstan in the very first day. Very surprising to me that they didn't start off with the performance that we've now been seeing. They've been struggling with placements. Out of all of the things, it's been placements. And that doesn't necessarily come super surprising to me, because honestly, they've been struggling in recent times massively in the international scene. Like that lineup, they've gotten last place in PMSL this year. Just to give you guys a perspective, that specific lineup who's been dominating the European scene for so long, dominating in the sense of always being top 4, top 5, maybe top 6, sometimes even better than that, significantly better than that. So I was very surprised to see them struggling for the first time. So this hasn't been new to me. But in this lobby with 10 teams against way lesser experienced teams, that's where you're struggling as a team that's played the top of the international scene for the last 4 years. That's what's surprising to me. So I want to see Kazakhstan now bring their A game. They need to if they want to qualify, and they showed as well. That's where they belong. They belong in a qualification spot.
They'll have to show us, and they'll have to show us now. We are about to head into the last Erangel of the tournament for all these teams qualifying today. We have game number 4 of the day, game number 10, that should be, of Group A for you guys in just a few seconds. And it's not only game 10, it's also the third last chance for anyone to make any sort of moves on the leaderboard. Right now, Kazakhstan is qualifying. Right now, Mongolia is playing catch-up. We have Uzbekistan and a few other teams right on their heels. So, jumping into Erangel, not going to see a whole lot of hot drops here, Falix. I don't think so. But we might see some interesting circles, and you never know what these teams are going to throw at us.
Yeah, this specific playing path was almost identical, just mirrored to the last one we had, and that one ended in military base, so I'm excited to see where this one's gonna go. It obviously does favor the western side just a little bit. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It is one of the last 3 chances now for any team still in contention for these 2 spots for the IESF World Esports Championship in Riyadh in November this year, and to potentially continue to represent your nation at the world's high stage in this nationwide PUBG Mobile Esports competition. As we are dropping down, you said you didn't expect any hot jobs, and honestly, I don't either.
You never know, though. You never know what these teams have in store. We saw a Rozhok fight in that last minigame, right? So I'm not putting anything past these teams. I'm not pretending like I can predict what they are going to do, and sometimes that's a pretty good strategy. If the enemy doesn't know what you're going to do,
confuse them.
That can be pretty helpful. And like you said, right, this is a bit of a different game. This is representing your nation. This is a bit of a different pride attached to it. It's not business as usual. And that can be something that some of these teams might be very proud of. This is exactly the kind of circle, though, Alex, that Mongolia would have wanted. This is exactly the kind of circle that opens the gate wide for them. Now they just have to figure out, what do we want in this? How do we want to play it? The cards are pretty much in our hand.
Absolutely. Doesn't really favor anyone, which I think is the first good point that I see when the circle pops. But as we said, usually with that few teams in the lobby, that doesn't really matter anyways. Phase 1 doesn't really matter. Except for Sanhok potentially, but even Sanhok, there was so much space to be gathered. So much space that was free, even in Phase 2. So I think on ERANGEL it's gonna matter even less. But then again, Mongolia though, they will at least have a less chaotic early game. They will have a more structured early game, having access to more centralized position from the get-go.
Kazakhstan, on the other hand, Bahrain, they are once again far away from this circle. But remember the last time I said that, I think Bahrain got themselves a double-digit kill in second place game, and Kazakhstan with a reasonable showing there as well. So it doesn't really matter for them, as we are not even seeing the first few moves just yet. Slow looting times. But I'm saying if you're if you're a team like Kazakhstan right now, this is where you gotta start being careful about crazy things happening to you. You don't want a 4-man Lebanon to fly into your loot spot and try to go for a crazy fight, right? You don't want to get caught off guard by that. You really gotta minimize risks, and you really gotta make sure you dodge all the craziness. Because there is a few teams on that leaderboard that the production team is showing us on the right. There is a few teams there that really just can't qualify anymore, if we're being completely honest. And those teams can always throw a spanner in the works, do something crazy, you know. They might just run at you on your loot spot. They might try to cut your rotation in an awkward spot. So you got to really minimize risks. You got to be really careful about what you do.
Careful indeed. Now we have Uzbekistan. It's extra careful. 68 points, as we said. One good game of like a dinner with 5, 6, 7 frags, depending on how the rest of the teams perform, could catapult them up towards that qualification spot. But if Kazakhstan shows us anything of the sorts that we've been seeing the last 3 games, then not even that is going to be enough. Just to give you guys a perspective of how much the difference in points still means. And Mongolia, 6 points to overtake Kazakhstan at the very least. Despite not making a single good game today, and they've only been ahead 10 or 12, maybe 15 points at the start of it, is still in reach. So also, once again, shows us how few points still matter in the grand scheme of things, on the grand scheme of qualifying.
Yeah, and you can already tell from how much we're talking about points, how close we are getting to the end, and it's a bit of a challenge for the players to try and not think about points too much, right? They are trying to play the best game they can every single game. The only real situation where you want to think about points as a player is when you're trying to take out teams that are right next to you on the leaderboard, right? You're trying to take out the Kazakhstan that's right in front of you. You're trying to take out the Mongolia that's really catching up on your heels. So that's where you want to be thinking about points. All the rest of the day, you're hoping to ignore that subject as much as you can to just play the best game at your ability.
Palestine, also one of the teams that's been in the middle of the tournament, at least I want to say, in a great spot to catch up, but then kind of, it's been up and downs with them, and then kind of not, and then again, and then not. Palestine couldn't really find a consistent playing style. And they've been the most interesting team to watch, I want to say. Even with Bahrain dominating, I feel like they've been the most interesting team to watch. Whenever we've been seeing them, especially in Miramar, that's why I want to wait for the last 2 matches today. Especially in Miramar, they've just been pulling up on people. They've just been super agile, super fast with their decision-making as well. And I really liked what I saw. It is a risky playstyle, though. So in a best of 12, maybe that's the reason we have them in 6th place for the time being. But if I were to give a placement to Palestine without seeing the leaderboard, I would rank them higher. Just as I said, based off of what we've seen so far as a gameplay.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky. It's also just the thing we talked about earlier, right? That makes it so hard to judge some of these performances is how different these lobbies are, and how even each game has been so different. And it's quite hard to fault someone like Mongolia for not being able to adapt to this lobby, right? And then you think about how this lobby would be with 16, 18 teams. You have no idea, and it gets really hard. So hard to say how other teams would be adapting, but shout out to the observers for showing us the map. We've seen a bridge camp here, Alex, and we see a Bahrain that might be cruising right on into that.
Yeah, it's a good bridge camp as well. Gotta be honest. I think Bahrain is not gonna expect that. The only good thing I see right now going for Bahrain is if they delay it just a tiny bit. First of all, maybe Jordan is gonna rotate away, and second of all, they might drive into it one by one. So if the first player goes down, they will at least know, instead of everyone just driving on through and getting obliterated.
Yeah,
they will at least have the opportunity to still play this game as a 3-man. But the way I see it, Jordan doesn't believe in that bridge camp anymore, which I think is kind of a weird decision. If you wait that long anyways, and you kind of give up on phase 1 already. Yeah. So why rotate off now? You might as well just stay, but I think they've lost the belief that anyone else is still crossing the bridge.
It's a hard game to play, right? You never know if somebody's coming, and you never know when the right time is to call it off. So if they go a little bit early here, maybe. And, oh, what is that? Absolutely sat him down. That's a pull-up, potentially, Tajikistan. Big knock from range. Sending him back, packing. But yeah, it's like you said, it's a hard decision, right? You never know when somebody's going to come across the bridge, and if nobody comes crossing the bridge, then the right decision was to never go there in the first place. So, tricky thing to time the bridge camps, as we see Palestine getting Wassam back on his feet and potentially figuring out what they want to do with the Tajikistan drive-bys.
Not sure if I like this position too much. Playing Gak as a 4-man with the amount of space you would have right around you, I'm not so sure if that is a spot that really is going to give you a good chance of winning this game. But we'll have to wait and see. Zone close, you can see up top right of the screen. Lovely graphic. In just a couple of seconds. But now, they are relatively centralized. As Jordan is making their way in, so is Bahrain. Huge split on rotation. It seems like some of these players had to rotate really far towards the eastern side to grab vehicles. I don't really see another reason for them to be that far split and to loot that far towards the eastern side of the military base anyway. But at least for now, no one's in that rotation path anyway, so shouldn't be a problem for them to group up later on.
Yeah, it's a bit of a different situation if you're Jordan now coming on in, breaching a compound. But like you said, right, not a lot of space either. This is even smaller than Gatka. It's a very early consolidation for Jordan. You're not giving yourself a whole lot of options when it comes to potential circle outcomes here.
Not a whole lot of options indeed. With especially when more of these hard cover positions in the middle of the zone are being taken, it's going to get so very tough for everyone else to find a position later on, depending on where it's going to end, obviously. But we've seen these endings around the Gek area time and time again, and as we said, for someone to rotate in from the outside, it becomes so very tough. Like, you will need to breach position, and most of the times you'll just be sprayed out of the vehicle and be harassed like Jodoba is at the moment. So these positions being taken really early on by Tajikistan, by Jordan, by Palestine are pretty good, depending on where the circle goes. But it's kind of a gamble, as you said, but it's pretty good for the time being.
Good for the time being. Good position for Bahrain, good position for Kazakhstan, southeast side of the map. Mongolia, pretty tame, I would say. Pretty defensive on that northern edge on Everest, making sure that they have the most amount of information possible, but not really holding a lot of ground. I'm not sure why they still have a player in the blue. I'm not sure if he's looting or if he's just AFK at the moment. Circle goes northeast, though. Circle goes fairly far away from the chopstick here that we've been watching with Tajikistan and Jordan, and goes right onto Lebanon, Alex. And I'm not believing, but I want to start dreaming, you know? I want to start dreaming at this point.
The thing is, there is only a limited amount of endings in this safe zone, and yeah, Lebanon is in prime position with the 2-2 split they have. They're very actively opting for the 2-2 split now to have the best chance at winning this one. And I don't really see too many potential breaches on their position either. Palestine is still trying desperately to find any kind of spot, but they just realized, well, everything is taken, so you might have to rotate back to Gekka. But yeah, with everyone else already having kind of a safe spot in the circle, just not a perfect spot, I think they will most likely not be breached as easily in that 2-2 split as you may think.
Players around them lose, teams around them losing players as well. We see Mongolia picking up one there. We see a bit of a scuffle here with Jordan in the trenches, in the chopsticks we talked about. There's a chance they close this out. There's a chance they're going further. Miracle with the drive-by going on in. Knows they have 2 knocks in that dip, so that's 2 eliminations they can confirm, and now they can crunch and take down the rest. And just like that, look at that, beautiful sprays into the smoke. Nice clear so far. 4 defeats on the side of Jordan, and taking a good position in the circle while they're at it is a really nice start to the game for them.
Yep. as we said, it's an important time now in this tournament, in this qualification stage, to improve. Jordan has fought their way in now, and have eliminated the one team that really stood in between them and the circle center. Though Jordan in a really, really good spot. You can tell no one's in the southwest anymore. Quite in contrast to Bahrain, who've kind of spread out far and spread their wings throughout the entirety of the southern side. Still waiting for a definitive answer on where the circle shift is going to go to. And by now, I feel like with the positions they have, they should have information on almost every other team. Like, they should know how many teams are fighting towards the Gek area, where Palestine is, where Lebanon is. Maybe even have gather information on how how Lebanon is splitting. And if they would have that, I could see, depending on how the next circle shift is going to go, and once again, it does tend to center up, I could see them breaching it. I could see Bahrain going for a very aggressive breach on towards Lebanon.
They also have the single mansion that's still available between Kazakhstan and Lebanon. They might have an idea about that too, but yeah, I can't disagree. I like the playstyle of both Mongolia, Bahrain, Kazakhstan, all just holding their edges, trying to hold information, hold ground, and then react whenever the circle shift comes in. Now, it does center up a little bit towards the south. Very nicely so for Bahrain. And I think I'm seeing Kazakhstan very quickly engage on the compound they still have in the circle. I thought they might be going for the single mansion there a little bit further down the hill, but I'm not sure if they're aware, actually, that that's up for taking.
Sheep southern circle. As if Bahrain knew it. As if Bahrain knew it. Crazy stuff from them. Uzbekistan going towards the warehouses by the looks of it. Actually, no, Uzbekistan is just sending it straight through. Where's Uzbekistan heading? That's the big question. Where they want to end up as soon as this phase closes. They've just sent it straight through, but they're driving into Bahrain. Do they know Bahrain is there?
I think they're taking a single mansion. I think they're taking a single red mansion on the low ground. They might be taking,
yeah. Interesting.
Turkmenistan, though. Big pull-up.
And they will take down, I believe it was Kleber. So Jordan in a little bit of trouble. I think they didn't expect just a random breach at one of their players' position either. I definitely wouldn't have. That's gonna significantly hinder their ability to win this round now. Good shots coming out. Klaus is getting set down though late with some really fast shots. Chappie should have the rest though, no problem at all. But what more do you do with this? I feel like Jordan might be in a better position than Turkmenistan is right now, just because of the fact that, yes, you've lost a player, but you also get more kill potential. And honestly, with these kinds of circles, sometimes man advantage doesn't give you too many advantages anyways.
Yeah, I mean, if they can close this out, there's not a whole lot of space for Turkmenistan here at all, right? So if Ragnaros can stay alive, the rest of the players close it up a little bit. 2 nades is all they would need, but right now it's not happening just yet, and they're even taking fights on the other side. There's Palestine as well, trying to knock on the door, trying to make this as hard as they can. And Turkmenistan are suffering under their split right now. They're suffering under how much they wanted to take. And they will have a hard time regrouping on this.
Yep. I'm not even sure how it's going to be possible.
Oh, 6.
Kazakhstan now has really made their way in through the eastern side. I think that's going to eventually result in a fight against Bahrain. First of all, that's a big nade against Ragnarok. Turkmenistan could bring Jordan into deep trouble. It should be a trade, though. Somehow Klaus survives. And he does get back up to 75 HP. Now the rest of the players are raining in. Turkmenistan really wants to take this fight. And look at this, NATO. He's just driving straight through. Somehow none of his teammates are there to support him. Obviously, because he just did an absolutely crazy fly-in. And he immediately got punished for it. That's going to be Jordan picking back up the advantage. That's so surprising to me. I thought if they fly in, at least do it as a group. I feel like they would have eliminated Jordan very easily here.
That was a risky one. I thought they might have thought that the opponents were much closer in those smokes or something like that. Maybe a bit of a miscommunication, but Aito goes way too far there. And yeah, like you said, it's got to cost them. Now the nades are being lobbed out. Some of them landing, some of them not so much. Ragnarok with another bit of a disengage. I'm not sure how much control Jordan have kept, though, of this at the same time. Remember, they had Palestine on their south. They had to deal with them as well. But now with Turkmenistan grouping up here, there's nades coming in from the north now, as they have given up the yellow houses, and they are now being pressured as well.
Turkmenistan, I'm really surprised. Out of all the teams, Turkmenistan is the one to bring so much trouble towards Jordan. Another good nade. Ragnarok almost goes down. But he survives this with around 30 HP. He's going to be able to pick up another first aid now to bring him back to 75. He's only got one more left. And once again, I thought Turkmenistan should have engaged this. But now looking back at it with the new circle, maybe that worked out just fine. Because they will be able to gatekeep everyone else. And Jordan especially needs to close the distance sometime soon. They've got the smokes now. And at least Ragnarok doesn't have any more in his backpack. That means at some point, they will need to run. If they don't use this opportunity now, maybe they're going to be in trouble later on. What a nade.
What a nade, right?
Wow.
What a nade. That costs you some time. That costs you a first aid. That sends you packing once again. But Bahrain is taking casualties here. It is the big dog in the lobby actually getting bullied around a little bit by Kazakhstan from the top. Uzbekistan still sitting pretty after their send to the single mansion. And we've been watching this fight here unfold for a while. There's nades cooking on both sides. Klaus now surely in trouble, but seems to be good at dodging the nades. That's a triple nade, though. Surely the last one does the trick. He keeps putting down to just 1 HP, but he keeps surviving them somehow, Felix. There, finally is the opening. But now, they should have no idea where the rest of the players are. The smokes are there. They're trying to jump over to spot over the top of the smokes. They find another one. Ragnarok is just running over this. The Bison's out. The SMGs are there. Chappie finds one. It's an absolute mess. It's a 1v1 now. Lathan Miracle actually making this a 1v2. And it's looking like they can clean it up. Chappie has a DBS, though. Don't call it too early. There's the cleanup. There's finally this fight brought to a finish, Felix. It's been going on for what feels like 7 minutes.
Unbelievable. And Turkmenistan really will be the team to be eliminated. I don't know. I thought they had all the time, all the utility, all the position in the world to take down Jordan. But Jordan makes it work. And that's so important for them in terms of qualification. Lebanon, meanwhile, has grouped up in that centralized compound. So has, obviously, Uzbekistan with their good rotate. The one team that hasn't, though, is Mongolia. And that's Lebanon taking one down. Mongolia needs to win this against Kazakhstan. They need to grab some points. They haven't throughout the last 3 games and throughout the entire day. So this one is essentially almost do or die for them. They need to stay in reach.
They need to stay in reach. They need to win this fight here, essentially. If they do, they have a good chance of running away with it. If they lose this fight, it's becoming near impossible. Like you said, few third parties coming in from Lebanon, but they're just making that fight a tiny bit harder. It is essentially Mongolia versus 3 of Kazakhstan. There's the Saiga ringing out. That's 6 in the smoke, knock and flushed, and they're bringing the fight to them, and they're not hesitant about it. But look at that, they're so bunched up. This nade could just be the end of him. Alex is down. It's all just fighting for dear life. They're running him down. The shotguns are coming out.
Wow.
And it's not meant to be for Mongolia. It's just not their day, Felix.
Oh my goodness. Becca closes down Mongolia. And Mongolia, as a result of it, will go down with almost no elimination and almost no placement points. We still have 6 teams remaining. And if that isn't an upset, I don't know what is. Mongolia, 3 points only. I think they haven't even gathered double digits so far today. And that also means Bahrain is as safe as it gets. That's one less team that's really going to catch up to you anytime soon. So even if they go out right here, that's no problem. You've put in the work today already. You are to be excused, as we have Bahrain with just a single player left alive, left standing on that southern edge.
Gonna be maybe sneaking himself into a few placements here as well. The real question is, what does Kazakhstan do with this, right? What do they do with the rest of this game? What does Uzbekistan do with the rest of this game? Those are the teams fighting for their life in this qualification. And it's looking like Kazakhstan is swinging down to that roadside, swinging down to a tiny bit of cover, a lot of smokes, and hoping to out-survive anyone left in the circle. Palestine, they gotta make a send. I'm not sure if they're breaching the single mansion here, but wherever they go, they're not gonna have an easy time, Felix.
No. Seems like there's almost no spot they can really play. I think they have to breach Kazakhstan right now. I think they know this. Asa maybe has been spotted, maybe Becca either, maybe they drive him over, they see him, yes they do, what a breach coming out from Palestine, and together with the help of Becca, who unfortunately blew himself up, if I saw that correctly, they will be taken down. Yes, they get traded out by Lebanon, but at least there is another placement point, another elimination point as well, being secured by them. So good salvage off of that really tough circle.
Tough luck, but like you said, that's a kill that really gives you 2 points. A placement and an elimination. Kazakhstan only 5 this game. Palestine only 3. That's opening the door a little bit. Opening the door for Uzbekistan. I don't think this game is free for them at all. I think this is still a pretty hard game for them to move out of their compound. But if Lebanon missteps just a tiny bit, if they lose a player here or there, that could be all that Uzbekistan need to close that gap finally.
More nades are being thrown out. So many smokes from the Jordan players. But let's be honest, if Lebanon even loses a single player without getting essentially all frags, this is not the outcome they wanted. They need to pick up everyone right now. Look at this Mason. Has already found himself a pretty good spot. He just has to be careful of being open to Uzbekistan, but I don't think he is. I think the sightlines are just not quite there for Uzbekistan.
Look at the taps of the smoke. Just guessing where the Bahrain player could be hiding out. Does a good bit of damage. It is Uzbekistan who pick it up in the end. And it is Jordan finally go down here. Big game for Jordan as well. 8 elims.
Wow.
I've put them ahead of Uzbekistan in 5th. And now the game's on. Now the circle has shifted. Now we're down to the 4 versus 4. Only 2 defeats for Uzbekistan. A good send to the single mansion has brought them into placement points. But if they really want to be a contender, then they really need this win.
Yes, they do. Also, Lebanon, that would be their second dinner today, back to back. How crazy would that be? Ladies and gentlemen, for all the Uzbekistan fans in the chat right now, they do need your support, especially if Zakaria hits shots like that. So spam the flags once more. We've seen your massive, massive support for this nation throughout all the game days of Group A. 2 days ago, now today. They need it. They need it. If they win this game, they're so close to get a potential qualification to Riyadh. And the first knock has happened indeed.
First knock doesn't go their way. Circle hasn't gone their way either. The smokes are coming out. They're trying to use them to cover their approach as much as they can, but they need more space. They need more ground. They need to get closer, and they need to find big openings. Taking down a player here, absolutely massive if they can manage to do so, but it's going to be quite hard with the limited angles they're working with. The smoke wall is good. The smoke usage is fantastic from Uzbekistan right now, but I'm not sure if that's going to be enough. They need to get themselves to some place with potentially the biggest smoke wall I've ever seen.
Yeah, that is a nasty smoke wall. Really good team play coming out from Uzbekistan. That is one wall that you do not want to face. But then again, if it's not enough to actually get to the buildings, then what is it all for? And you can tell there's gaps now. You can only have so many smokes. First knock doesn't go their way. Second one doesn't either, as Mason takes down the second Uzbekistan player. It's just Hardpoint Frega left alive now. They've got a couple of more smokes. Well, that's about it.
They've gotten so far, though, but it doesn't help them. There's no more hard cover to deal with. Lebanon is flying on in. The shotguns are coming out, down to just one player in the smokes, and he's hunted down. Chasan will clean it up for Lebanon, and he's ruining the dreams of Uzbekistan.
Unbelievable. Uzbekistan was so close, but the circles just did not go their way, and you could tell Lebanon really happy with this one. That's the second game in a row. We said maybe a miraculous run was gonna be possible. Now that actually is. Now that actually is possible. The second almost 20-point game from Lebanon. That is, once again, that is, they doubled their points from last game. Now they add another 18. That is more than they had throughout the entire first 6 games of this group day.
Completely crazy what they have been able to achieve here, but we'll have to wait and see if it's enough. Craziness around the chopsticks as well for the majority of that game, Felix. But in the end, it was Jordan that cleaned it up. It took them a long, long time. But they were finally able to clean it up. We're finally able to get themselves 8 elims. And that puts them more into contention for a team that we should be talking about when it comes to qualification spots.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got to talk about Mongolia as well. That's the big fight that we saw in this round. Just not going their way. Kazakhstan doing some really big stuff, really good fights there towards the eastern side. And also Kazakhstan has just been really solid today as well in the fights. They just barely make any mistakes, and especially against a team like Mongolia. Sure, they were pressured not only from Lebanon but also from the zone, so they did have the massive advantage. But then also getting into this without losing a player is pretty good. So Kazakhstan is showing what they're made of.
Yeah.
And you said that you think it is between Mongolia, Kazakhstan, and Bahrain. So far, that does ring true. But I think with that game, Mongolia might even have been overtaken.
I'm not sure if they have, but they're certainly not looking like it's not looking successful at all. Chasan, 800 damage. He's been a big point gatherer for his team today. He's really pulling up the numbers. He's keeping the Lebanese dream alive. I'm saying that with a bit of a smiling eye because I'm not sure if it's actually possible. I'm not sure how mathematically possible it is, but they're certainly doing all they can. A 20-point win into an 18-point win is a pretty massive standing, a pretty massive statement on the standings. But Jordan getting themselves 13 points, I think, gets them to 4th. Uzbekistan into 5th. So the teams in front of Lebanon are not sleeping either.
No, they're definitely not sleeping. And they won't. And they won't be for the next 2 games that we have coming up. I am so excited we have Myanmar coming up, but let's take one more look at the match standings before we head on over to the overall standings soon. Palestine with 6 maybe is something we got to talk about. Bahrain with 5, Mongolia with 4, but also Turkmenistan. I thought they had such good chances of making something big work. I feel like they could have been in the shoes that Jordan is right now. The 13 points that they gathered was almost exclusively because they fought everyone else in the ridgelines in the open field. And Turkmenistan, I want to say, had the advantage with the blue zone and still wasn't able to do it. That one straight fly-in from, I believe it was NATO, kind of threw them around, and I feel like they will look back at this and be like, maybe that round was meant for us. But yeah, unfortunately, 2 points only, with Jordan picking up 13. They will still stay in contention with these 5 playful points and 8 eliminations that they've gathered.
193 smokes and nades this game. I think about 100 coming out of Uzbekistan there towards the end. They've really tried to put up the biggest smoke wall ever seen. It wasn't enough. It was very hard to cross that path. I think they might have had an opening as Lebanon were pushing out so far to the west. Maybe there was an opening for them to breach the compound and try to go for something. But it wasn't meant to be. We're going to see a few more stats about this game in a second. And I think it's going to be a bit of a mix here. Because I feel like Jordan did a whole lot of the damage there. And the highest elims and the highest assists are going towards them for sure.
Yeah, Lebanon and Jordan, as well as Bahrain. Everyone's represented in these statistics. Bahrain obviously had a pretty tough entry to that southern side, with Kazakhstan kind of contesting them, then Mongolia coming in later on as well after they've been kind of shot at from everyone else. But yeah, I feel like for everyone except Lebanon and maybe Uzbekistan, it's been a really tough game. These kind of circles in the open field just tend to be really heavy. And while we take a look at the MVP, Ragnarok, he's been the MVP despite Lebanon having such a big advantage. I feel like that's the biggest takeaway from this.
Yeah. This is also one of the games we talked about Turkmenistan coming away with a win when they got really favorable circles. That was Lebanon this game, but Lebanon was much better at flexing out and getting the kills. But they still, just being in the middle meant that they only picked up average amount of eliminations. I'd say we've seen very many high kill wins. This was not one of them, and that is reflected here in the stats as well. We're gonna see a few more of this game, and I think it's gonna be a mixed bag. We're gonna have some player head-to-heads. We're gonna have some team head-to-heads for you guys, and you're gonna see the disparities are not as wide as they have been in the past sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. I think the difference is not as big as maybe some of these other games, as you said. 4 eliminations for Ragnarok, 3 eliminations for Hassan. We talked about Lebanon underperforming. They're finally showing us what they're made of, especially Hassan. I've talked about him and his teammate from Heroic. These guys do have the experience, but just nothing of the sort has been shown in the first game day of Group A. So, Jordan in the head-to-head statistics. Interestingly enough, same amount of elimination as Lebanon. Same thing kind of that reminds me of Tajikistan's win. Both of these teams with limited elimination potential, but at least Lebanon had the opportunity to take out all 4 of the Uzbekistan players in the end.
That's a good bunch of points that you're gathering just in those few seconds where they clean up the game, right? If they had a 4-kill win, it would have been a little bit disappointing, but they managed to get themselves 8 and they make another jump on the standings, which is what you guys are waiting for. It's what we are waiting for, and there they are. Lebanon is up to 7th by tripling their points within 2 games here. So crazy stuff from Lebanon right now. But the top is where it gets really interesting. Jordan actually passes Mongolia here, Alex. And Mongolia is now 8 points away from a qualifying spot.
That's massive. We've never seen Mongolia be outside of it, except for today. And I gotta say, deservingly so. Unfortunately, the current reigning PUBG Mobile Global Champions have not been convincing today. They've just not shown us any sort of opportunity or willingness to take things into their own hands and maybe take isolated fights a little bit earlier than when they're pressured to. It feels like they've been pressured into everything that happened so far instead of the other way around. So Mongolia needs to step it up. 39 LMs is just not good enough right now in comparison to, for example, the 64 that we have on Bahrain. These guys have been fragging the lobby. So as we said, Mongolia, if they want to make it happen, 2 more chances and it is Miramar. Luckily for them, at least historically, they've been pretty good on Miramar.
It might be the comeback that they need. But right now, they're on the back foot. 8 points, super doable. I think that's where I'm gonna start lifting the line a little bit. I think Uzbekistan is gonna be mighty hard. 76 to I think 90 that was, but 82 to 90 is completely doable. So Mongolia is still in the runnings, and yeah, we'll have to see what they can do on Miramar, like you said.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll have to take a look at Miramar in just a couple of minutes. But first of all, a very short break before we go into match 5 and 6. Once again, Miramar. Stay tuned.